by and wait. They breach, they go in. And it's just so hard to think about growing up here what may have happened if they hadn't done that. Vanderbilt spokesperson at the Children's Hospital just texting me, 3 children passed away on arrival from gunshot wounds. So many families in the Green Hills community mourning. I went to the elementary school across the street, St. Paul Christian Academy. When this news came in, it's just gut-wrenching. It really tugs at your heartstrings. It's so hard. The helicopters that you can see Sky 5 showing have been flying since all of this started. My parents' home is actually about a mile from here, and they saw the choppers circling in the Harding and Time Boulevard area. Another neighbor who I know texting me saying she saw children running, screaming down Hillsborough Pike. One of the worst things to witness as a neighbor standing there. There's offices that are on lockdown or were on lockdown in the area. And again, they had shut down Hillsborough Pike for a while. I just checked the TDOT cameras. So I know some people with children at daycares in this area just hit hard by the news, trying to get over there. It might be a little bit before they reopen those streets. So try not to panic at this time. But again, we have crews who are all across the Green Hills area connecting information. That's Sky 5 giving you a shot of the Covenant School. I remember a couple years ago at the bottom of the hill where the school is located, they actually built a fire station right there. So I'm sure that response time had to be extremely quick. All they'd have to do is just ride up that hill right there off Harding. Again, a tough day for everyone here in Nashville. Hannah, Vicki?
Thank you, Alexandra. You're right. This is a tough day for all of us, including fire. You said the fire department, police department, no group of protectors wants to have to do a story like this or cover an incident like this, I should say.
And, you know, Vicki, a lot of these police officers, as a kind of way to give back to the community, they organize these active shooter training workshops, which are so difficult to do, but they do it with such sensitivity. And this school, having done that 1 year ago, January of 2022, it was led by a former police officer who works with a Metro police officer. I've talked to them briefly this morning. They're not in town. He picked up the phone immediately. We're seeing if there's any way he can talk to us a bit more about specifically this school and this environment.
Sure.
But once again, they led a 2-day intensive training last winter that involved looking at some behind-the-scenes video of the Las Vegas shooting. The Uvalde shooting hadn't happened yet. Wow. They talked about the Sandy Hook shooting, and it just put things into perspective for these teachers that you have to be prepared. You have to.
And you wonder if other schools are going to do this. You know, I'm sure they will after this.
Great point.
I would think.
I hope they do.
I do too. Now here's a map of where everything is. You see the Woodmont Baptist Church, and it looks a little distance there, but it's the Covenant School. Is that correct?
Yes, it does seem like most of those major roads in the Green Hills area surrounding the school are impassable right now. Barricades, TDOT workers just turning drivers away so that it can be easily accessed by first responders. But yeah, there's the Woodmont Baptist Church where Olivia Michael is standing by. That's where parents are asked to go to hopefully be reunited with their sweet children.
Exactly. Let's hope that happens. We're going to keep on top of this. Again, we're going to go to Chris Davis, who's at Vanderbilt. Chris?
Vicki, it's hard to stand here knowing that this place is a place where children go to get better. My own sister had a life-saving heart surgery within these walls, but these kids just weren't given that opportunity. We were told officially by Vanderbilt that the 3 children that were pronounced dead here at the scene pretty much as soon as they arrived, and that is just such a heartbreaking thing to digest. We just spoke with a spokesperson for Vanderbilt who promised to keep us in the loop as best as possible. I had the question of, are any other children receiving treatment here beyond the 3 that were pronounced dead? They just don't have that answer they're able to share with us at this point. But we're going to continue to be able to try to search for answers, because we know so many of you are tuning into this broadcast that may have connections to this school that want to know answers about patients that are here and things like that. So we are stationed out here to be able to get as much information out to the public as possible. But it is just hard to stand here and cover this, knowing that this is a place where kids come here to get better, and they just didn't get that opportunity today. Other than that, we do know that there are some Metro police officers stationed out front. That's typically what happens when they transport patients quickly to the hospital. They have a police escort that come. If they come by ground, we don't know yet if they came by ground or by air. But of course, you know, just as everyone has already said, it is just a hard day to report this in Nashville, in a community that we love. But it's our job, and we're going to continue to do it. So I'll relay any information that we get here from the hospital as soon as we get it.
Reporting from Vanderbilt. Thank you, Chris.
Well, this is breaking news that we continue learning the latest details about this shooting at an elementary school in Nashville. The Covenant School, it's a school that, according to its website, has children from pre-K until 6th grade, quite young. And we're learning from our CBS affiliate in Nashville that 3 children have died. The Vanderbilt University Medical Center confirmed this tragic news. We also know from local authorities that the shooter was killed by police after the active shooter event. The Nashville Fire Department also confirmed that it was responding and treating multiple people. It's not clear how many are injured, but at this time, we are confirming, based on our local affiliates reporting, that 3 children have died. We don't know the ages yet. We know the children were taken away from the school, the children who were at the school, to another church where they were being reunited with their families. We know from covering these kinds of tragedies that it is a time of not just sadness and shock, but a lot of confusion on the ground, the parents trying to reunite with their children. We have local reporting there on the ground, and we'll continue our coverage with the Nashville affiliate, bringing the latest details. We don't know any other details at this time about the shooter, but we know that he was stopped and killed by police. Our coverage from the Nashville affiliate continues now.
We have no more victims. What do you think is going on right now?
Well, I can tell you right now, protocol says that medical attention, and this is the problem with active shooters, but they'll have to clear every room in that school to make sure that there's not another accomplice in the school, and that generally means medical will not be allowed inside the school until they've cleared it. So a school the size of Covenant would probably take, I would say, 15 to 20 minutes, depending on how many first responders came, and I'm sure that there was quite a few in Metro. But it's like so many things. You've got to have command and control. You've got to have orders. Police won't go in the building until they've been told how to do it, when to do it. So that's the challenge that they have. And I will say one thing that this. Go ahead. I'll let you ask the question. I don't want to run off on the mouth here.
So, Mike, can you tell us exactly what could have prevented this? I mean, because obviously they'd had a lot of training. What do you think could have prevented this?
Well, you know what? If I think we had an answer to that, you know, right now you've got to have the ability not to get into a school, and they may have had all of that, and that person may have identified themselves. And so, with that being said, once a person comes into a school, unless they're in what I would call a vestibule, a contained area, if I were designing schools now, if they, from a front door perspective, you would let them in once you've identified them via a ring system or video, and then you have another holding area that with double doors so they can't get into the school. Now, that being said, every school has exterior doors all around the school. I don't know how the shooter got into the school, but, you know, human behavior says that if there's a door, that somebody could keep it unlocked or maybe prop it or whatever the case may be. So my biggest concern, and that I would tell you, it's hard to prevent a shooter from coming inside the school unless you have an active armed security person that's outside the school, that's walking the grounds, that's not in one location, that they're going from door to door to door to door, very similar that you might see from a military installation. And so you've got to keep them from getting inside the school. Magnetometers don't work because you're going to have them set at the front of the school, but you've got other doors you can come into the school, or you have playgrounds where people can get in the playground. So the most important thing is to teach people how to recognize danger. The Israelis are experts at it. You can't run in a mall without being contested. Why are you running inside of the mall? So there's got to be a lot of vigilance training, I think, is required to recognize danger. And then you have to be trained. I love police, and they work very hard, and they did a great job responding today. But as long as that shooter's in the school without the police department, then the teachers become the first responders. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
They have to deal with it. They have to deal with it. And so we tend to forget that sometimes, that we'll wait for the police to come, and they do a great job, and they have great lockdown once they're there. But, boy, you better know how to do it once the gun enters the school. And I'm not an advocate of necessarily arming teachers in the school, but I do think you have to have some training to know how to respond.
All right, Michael Moosemore, a threat trainer, we thank you for your insight on this. Thank you so much.
Well, God bless you, and God bless the families that are suffering today.
Amen to that. Now, we understand, we've been told that 2 adults were killed. Now, we're assuming one is the shooter, but we don't know who the other one was. Maybe someone who tried to prevent the shooter from progressing. So we will let you know more about that as soon as we get that information. But again, let's go over what we do know. The suspect is dead. 2 adults, as I mentioned, are dead also. Unclear if one was the suspect, but we assume that's who it is. 3 children, unfortunately, were killed. The Reunification Center at Woodmont Baptist Church is located at 2100 Woodmont Boulevard. The ATF and the TBI are responding to assist, along with, of course, Metro Nashville Police.
Everybody across the state, basically, at this point, is finding out about this, and leaders are starting to comment. Governor Lee has said something. He says, I am closely monitoring the tragic situation at Covenant, and the Tennessee Department of Safety and the Highway Patrol are assisting local law enforcement and first responders at the scene. As we continue to respond, please join us in praying for the school, congregation, and Nashville community. Anything that can help this investigation, I imagine, is being utilized right now. That's why the Tennessee Highway Patrol is involved. This is beyond Metro Police. They have so much at their disposal in our city police department, but you see, everyone wants to help.
All hands on deck. Now let's go back out to Vanderbilt and Chris Davis, who has more for us. Chris?
Vicki, as you just mentioned, a heartbreaking update to an already heartbreaking day. A spokesperson for Vanderbilt just came outside to say they can officially confirm that 2 adults have died in addition to the 3 children that have died that we already knew about. As you mentioned, Vicki, we don't know for sure or not if the 2 adults, one of them is the shooter. We don't know. I asked, they said they could not confirm at this point. They said that both of the adult patients were rushed to the adult side of Vanderbilt University Medical Center, and they were confirmed dead upon arrival as well. So we have now been able to touch base with Vanderbilt on the ground here, and they are running out with updates as soon as they are able to move forward with them, which is definitely streamlining the process. But it just goes to say, once again, hospitals are places where people come to get better. But obviously, that was just not possible today. Of course, they were running triage on these patients as soon as they could and getting them here to the hospital as soon as they could. But just to reiterate once again, 5 people totally dead. 2 adults, 3 children. We don't know yet if of those 2 adults, one happens to be the shooter or if it's another innocent victim in this whole scenario. But we'll continue to push for answers, and we'll let you know as soon as we know them.
All right, Chris, thank you so much. We have information. Unfortunately, it's a sad take on this. Education Week. Oh, before we do that, though, I'm sorry.
No, Senator Bill Hagerty also chiming in, Vicki. He says, devastated and heartbroken about the tragic news at Covenant School. I'm grateful to law enforcement and first responders for their heroic actions. And as you were saying, there's data on on school shootings. Of course there is, because these are occurring at such an alarming rate.
It's just unbelievable that it's it doesn't even seem that unusual anymore. When you first hear about Sandy Hook, that was unbelievable. But now it's sort of like, oh, there's been another school shooting. From Education Week magazine, they said in the year of 2023, which we're only into March, 12 school shootings with injuries or deaths. 16 people killed or injured in a school shooting. 4 people killed, 3 students or others, 1 school employee or other adults. 12 people were injured, and the shootings happened in different locations, obviously. We're not really sure. We don't have that whole list. But obviously, just 23, and we're not including the people who died today.
Right, a total of 5. Possibly that count includes the shooter. You know, this is information that we're still working to confirm, how the shooter got into the school. My husband is there, and he said that they're discussing with some of the faculty, that they're texting that this person may have shot through the door. This person may have been able to shoot out a locked door. Nick Barris is there, and he's gathering everything he can to give us some on-the-ground details. Nick, what do you know now?
Yeah, we are just in preparation now for a news conference that's supposed to begin here at the staging area sometime within the next 5 to 10 minutes. Metro Police Don Aaron, I think, is just about to arrive, so hopefully we'll have a lot of these questions answered for you. We'll be carrying that, of course, live as soon as it begins. But again, I'm here at Hillsborough Road and Burton Hills Road, and I heard what you were both discussing about how this shooter perhaps made it into the school. Some of the individuals we've talked to that have walked their way down from the school tell us the same thing. Now, this has not been confirmed by law enforcement, but that the shooter made his way in, or her way in, I guess we don't have an ID on that individual yet, by shooting through one of the locked doors and shattering the glass, making the way in at that point. And again, we don't have confirmation yet whether or not the deceased adults, one of them is the shooter or not, but we know now the total death toll is at 5, and still a lot of questions remain. They have the area still blocked off. You hear the helicopters overhead, no one making their way up and down Hillsborough Road along this stretch, or Burton Hills Road. It remains closed off. We did see several of the school buses loaded with children making their way from Covenant School to the area to be reunited with their parents down a distance here at Woodmont Church. But beyond that now, it sounds to me like the school itself is becoming a crime scene where they've kind of locked it down and the investigations continue. But the students and staff and faculty now are being evacuated out of that area. But a lot more detail to come, and we're going to stand by here. We'll make sure to break in as soon and let you know as soon as Don Aaron joins us to answer a lot of these questions. That should be coming up in the next few minutes. So we'll send it back to you, Vicki.
All right, thanks so much, Nick. Again, we'll tell you what happened. For those who are just joining us, 5 people have been killed. 3 of them are children. They were at the school. They were there in a regular day where people have their regular days, taking their kids, and they were shot. Again, the suspect dead. 2 adults killed. We don't know for sure, but we think one of them obviously was the suspect. Don't know who the second adult was, but those 3 children were killed. It was at the Covenant School in Green Hills, a school that Hannah's very familiar with.
Yeah, the reason why I came up here in the first place to discuss with you, and now I'm, receiving some information as I continue to sit with you, is a year ago, Vicki, I happened to go with my mother-in-law who works at the school, who sits at the front desk. I attended a training. Every faculty member was there. I'm talking the cafeteria workers, the teachers, the leadership. A 2-day active shooter training by Defend Systems, which is a company owned by Brink Fiddler, a former Metro police officer. And in this training, they talked through past shootings, and here we are sitting at the anchor desk with numbers. I mean, just there are too many to count these situations, but they were able to dissect these, talk about some of the vulnerabilities, and do the best they could moving forward to protect their grounds and their kids. And one of the things I've already said to you, which I think is just such a poignant point, is that when you are in a school with children who are chirping and talking and snacking and walking, you cannot always hear something down the hall. So, you know, gunshots were heard by my mother-in-law from the outside of the building. She was on a break, thank God. But who's to say people inside of the building on the other side heard what she did?
Sure. And I guess what she heard outside was they said when whoever it was shot through the door. That's what she was hearing.
Yeah, that's a possibility at the moment. Don Aaron, he's very good with the Metro Police Department with giving as much initial information as possible. So we hope that he can maybe give us an illustration as to how this person accessed the school. But one discussion among some of the people connected to the school is that a shooter may have shot through a locked door. And this school, based on what I know, they made sure those doors were locked at all times.
All right, are we going back out to Nick? Because I think we're getting ready for, okay, we'll be going out to him soon to hear from Don Aaron from the MNPS. We're keeping an eye on it, as I've been told.
Keeping an eye on it.
But yeah, a lot going on.
You know, Vicki, I saw one of our cameras a few minutes ago actually had some video of buses driving by.
Right.
And that's how the kids are being transported away from the school. Normally, you get on a bus to go on a field trip.
Right.
And today they are going to Woodmont Baptist Church to be reunited with anybody who wants to be with them.
For sure.
And right now, a lot of people want to know.
We are reporting at this hour that at least 3 children have died in a school shooting in Nashville, Tennessee. The Covenant School, what we know, is a pre-K through 6th grade school. As we were hearing from our local affiliate in Nashville, they're saying also 2 adults have died as well. We are waiting for a press conference from local authorities to give us a little bit more information, but according to our affiliate, the shooter came in shooting and might have shot through walls or doors, I'm not sure. But this is, of course, just yet another shooting that we have to report on. Tony, less than a year ago, you and I landed in Uvalde, and I'm seeing some of those voices, some of those parents who lost kids. I'm seeing siblings, parents like Gloria Casares and Senator Roland Gutierrez from Uvalde, all of them tweeting about just reliving the pain and hoping that something changes.
Yeah, it'd be deja vu for them. Our local affiliate, the coverage you were just watching, if you were watching it, it was powerful. They know this school. One of the reporters or anchors there, her mother-in-law worked at the front desk, happened to be on a break, heard the gunshots from the other side of the building. And according to eyewitnesses that the affiliate has talked to, the shooter came in and blew through the security system that the school has there, and according to the affiliate, shot through a locked door.
And it was interesting to hear about, you know, this reporter who was talking about she had participated in the active shooter training at the school and said every single faculty member was there. You know, this really speaks to you can try to prepare. There's different approaches to how to train faculty, students, how to prepare people for this, what seems like an almost inevitable event in this country at this point. And yet 3 children and potentially 2 adults have lost their lives, according to that local reporting.
Yeah, that's according to the hospital. We're not sure if the 2 adults includes the shooter or if it's 2 adults in addition to the shooter. And we can tell you a little bit about the Covenant School and its role in the community there in Nashville. It's associated with the Presbyterian Church. It's a pre-K through 6, which means you've got the real little guys in there, 3s programs. You can go half day, a couple days a week. This is the first experience of school for a lot of them. It's a religious school, all-day chapel. There's a daily all-school chapel, rather. They wear uniforms, little plaid skirts, little blue vests. It considers itself to be, in the school's alma mater, a beacon on the hill. It's a school of faith. It prides itself in not only giving the kids the ABCs, but also teaching them a belief in God and strengthening their character. And they go off from this school to schools all over the Nashville area. It's really a seeding ground for that community and doing good in the world as they see it by what they believe.
You know, we're seeing now these images of the Metro Police's SWAT team that must have responded there. Not sure if they're going towards the school or away from the school. Of course, we've learned that the shooter was stopped, that the shooter was killed by authorities. We know that, you know, local police, ATF, that several agencies responded, and that the children were taken to the Vanderbilt University Medical Center, the Children's Hospital there. We are ready to take you now to the press conference where we're going to learn much more from authorities.
Nashville Fire Department, who will talk about the fire department's actions in regard to this morning's call. This is going to be a brief update as to what has occurred. There will be more from this spot later in the morning with Chief John Drake and others. At 10:13 this morning, the police department received a call of an active shooter inside Covenant School, the Covenant Presbyterian Church. The police department response was swift. Officers entered the first story of the school, began clearing it. They heard shots coming from the second level. They immediately went to the gunfire. When the officers got to the second level, they saw a shooter, a female, who was firing. The officers engaged her. She was fatally shot by responding police officers. There was a 5-member team who was on the second floor at that time. 2 individuals from that 5-member team opened fire on the shooter. We know at this point that this shooter is a female. She appears to be in her teens, although her identification has not been confirmed at this juncture. We know that she was armed with at least 2 assault-type rifles and a handgun. We are efforting now to identify her. She entered the school through a side entrance and traversed her way from the first floor to the second floor, firing multiple shots. We now know that there are 3 students who were fatally wounded, as well as 3 adults inside the school. We are working to identify those victims. Including the shooter, a total of 7 persons were killed as a result of this morning's incident at the school. By 10:27, the shooter was deceased. The officers had engaged the shooter by 10:27, and she was deceased. Again, I said the first call came in at 10:13 this morning. We'll have more details to give you later in the morning. Chief Drake will be here in a bit. Now, Kendra Loney from Nashville Fire.
Fire department crews are dispatched for active shooter incidents as well, for medical support, but also for an RTF response, which is a rescue task force response to go in alongside of MNPD response. Our crews were right there on the scene to provide medical aid to any survivors, but also be there for victims so that we could try life-saving efforts in this case. So we went in as soon as it was safe for our responders to do so, to try to provide life-saving efforts for those that were impacted by this incident and this tragedy. Our crews were able to be on scene to pull out those that had viable signs of life, those that were still showing the option to be saved, and we did make transport of 3 individuals and 3 children, and then 2 adults that were taken from the scene. Our crews then set up a reunification unit. That reunification unit is at 2100 Woodmont Boulevard. That's where parents can go to be reunited with their children. All of the remaining students were able to be escorted out of the building with faculty and staff. We're not sure about the processes that they had in place, but we were on scene to help them mitigate anyone from seeing exactly what else was going on, but we're sure that they heard the chaos that was surrounding this. So we do have mental health specialists and professionals that are at that reunification site for both the students and the families that are going to be affected by this today. Our OEM units were able to provide buses to make transport from the Covenant School to the reunification site. We had one bus that carried 74 students students and faculty staff members to the reunification site, and an additional bus that had 34 students on them. So all of those persons were carried. It was difficult for us to kind of identify who was just there as part of staff for the church versus who was there for the school, because it's all housed in one building. But at this time, we were able to get that number of persons transported out of the building and into that reunification site. So that is where parents can go to be reunited with their students. There is a hotline being set up for parents to call, but right now that is where they should go, 2100 Woodmont Boulevard, which is Woodmont Baptist Church. Additionally, we do have a debriefing site set up for on-staff or personnel who are working this incident, and there are mental health professionals set up there for them as well. There was one police officer that was injured with a hand injury as a result of making an attack on this incident. But other than that, there have been no additional injuries to first responders or personnel responding to this. And as Don mentioned earlier, we will have further updates coming later on in the afternoon.
So on a typical day, there would be about 209 students inside the school and approximately 40 to 50 staff members, about 42 staff members. I'll take just a couple of questions before we go back.
Clear. So the 7 dead, and then the nature of injuries, how many injured do you know? You're being treated still, or injuries? I know first responders were.
An officer had a wound from cut glass. That is the only other injury that I'm aware of.
Do we know if the injuries to the students are critical or critical condition?
The 3 students are deceased. The 3 students who were shot are deceased. 3 staff members who were shot are deceased. That's a total of 6 victims. And then you have the shooter who was engaged by 2 of our police officers, part of a 5-member team, and she is deceased, for a total of 7 individuals. There are no other gunshot victims, non-lethal, that I'm aware of at present.
Do you know how many people were shot? Do you know how many people were shot before the police engaged the shooter?
No.
Do you know if they shot anyone after they engaged the shooter? Do you know if the shooter was able to shoot anyone else?
We do not know who she is at this juncture. We're trying to identify her. She does appear to be in her teens. Again, with 2 assault-type rifles and at least 1 pistol. No, I'm not.
Was there an SRO or an SSO working at the school?
No, this is a church that operates a private school. There was no Metro Police personnel assigned to that building at any time.
Tom, do you know if either of the 2 adults that were shot maybe confronted the gun?
You said 2?
Yeah, the adults.
No, there are a total of 3 adults.
3 adults.
3 adults who have been fatally wounded.
Okay, one of them being the shooter?
No.
No, okay, 3 adults.
So let me go over this again. You have a total of 6 victims, 3 students who are deceased, and 3 adult staff members from the school who are deceased. The shooter herself makes 7.
Do you know if one of the 3 adults maybe confronted her?
I do not.
Are they teachers?
There is video from the school that we are viewing now to try to learn exactly how all of this happened.
Can you say where the victims were located? Were they in the hallway, in a classroom?
I cannot at this juncture. As you know, 5 of the 6 were transported. So we will get that information later in the day.
Did police engage with the shooter inside a classroom or in the hallway in another location?
It is an upper level part of the school that's kind of a lobby type area. It was not in a classroom per se. All right, we'll be back shortly with more detail. We'll tweet out, give you a 15-minute or so notice before the next one, okay? Thanks.
Aren't you guys tired of covering this? Aren't you guys tired of being here and having to cover all of these mass shootings?
You have been listening to officials discuss the school shooting in Nashville today. Police say they shot and wounded a female suspect. They say the suspect killed 3 students and 3 adults, that they received the call at 10:13 this morning. Officials also say that the shooter appears to be a teenager. Kathy Geider, who is a former FBI special agent, is joining us now. Kathy, thanks for joining us. I mean, given your experience and your knowledge on this, first of all, I think what's the question that's on a lot of people's minds is how unusual is it for there to be a female shooter? We rarely ever hear of this in mass shootings.
It's quite rare. If you look at 100 shootings, you know, the average is 1, maybe a female shooter. So it's quite rare. Also quite rare for a teenage female shooter. Most of the active shooters that we've seen that have been women have been, you know, at least in their 20s, 30s. So this is very rare.
You know, we heard in the TikTok that was described by the chief of police there, 10:13 a.m. Emergency call. By 10:27, 14 minutes later, the suspect is dead. But she had made her way through a side entrance. We don't know if it was locked or not. Through a first floor up to a second floor when she was engaged by the authorities. 3 adults, we don't know their role at the school, and 3 children. It's chilling to think what age they may be, because this is a school that goes all the way down to 3-day-a-week preschool for 3-year-olds.
So from 3-year-olds to 6th graders. So
from 3-year-olds all the way up to 6th graders.
Very young.
Given that the suspect is dead, does that accelerate the process by which we're going to learn how exactly this came to be?
I don't know if it'll accelerate it, but I mean, there's just a definite process that they're going to go through with this victim, with the assailant. You know, they're still going to go look, you know, and get search warrants for a residence, for a computer, for a cell phone. All those steps are still going to happen, you know, at this point in time. So, I mean, those kind of things are going to happen no matter, you know, if the person is deceased or not. But there's definite steps that are going to be taken.
I wonder, Kathy, what runs through your mind in terms of, you know, what you'd like to learn first, how this investigation moves forward? What are the next steps? What were your first few questions as you're learning about this?
You know, my question is, you know, who is she? How is she connected to the school? How is she connected to people in the school? I would find it very rare that a random stranger would walk into the side entrance of a school and do this. So, you know, my questions are, what's her connection to the school? What's her connections to somebody in that school? Yeah. You know, and to go into the side entrance, probably because she knew the main entrance is, you know, not the safest way. If you're looking to get into a building, you're going to get stopped at a main entrance. So if you can get into a side entrance, a back entrance, you know, that's an easier route in. So that tells me that she may have some knowledge of this building or this facility. But, you know, my questions are, you know, who is she? What's her motive? What's her connection?
Yeah. And speaking of that, Kathy, you know, this is at a very basic point. I mean, it's incomprehensible for us to just imagine what's in the mind of a shooter in such a tragic case, especially dealing with young children. Tony and I covered Uvalde starting on the day that that horrible mass shooting happened. And I guess I wonder, why schools? What do we know about, you know, why people target children, innocent children?
You know, that's a good question, and I don't have the answer for that one. Unfortunately, schools tend to be a less secure, you know, facility in some sense. I mean, after all these shootings, they are definitely becoming more secure, and a lot of schools, you know, have all kinds of proactive measures and have done a lot. And you know, they had a training at the school just last year. So I'm not saying that they didn't, but I'm just saying traditionally schools have not been such a secure, hardened facility that we're used to, maybe with a government facility and things of that nature.
But every time more. I mean, we have a documentary from CBS Reports that I hosted called Guns in Schools, and it's just about guns in the classroom, rather. That's streaming on CBS News. And we ask all these questions, and it just seems, I mean, they had that training. It sounds like just a year ago, every faculty member participated. I mean, what works?
That's a great question, because obviously we haven't found it yet. We know that we've got to do something, and schools are and buildings are, and that's great. But when somebody's really determined, it's hard to stop a determined person who's done their homework. So we've just got to continue to do the best that we can, evaluating our schools, assessments on site, the physical assessment of the building, the trainings. That's great that they have already done that, but continual training. And, sadly, do we have to now make that, once a quarter in our schools, or, what are we going to have to do? But there are steps that can be taken, and it appears the school was, very proactive in doing that.
Kathy, we also learned in that press conference that the shooter had 2 assault-style rifles and 1 pistol, which is quite a lot of firepower for as they described, a young, possibly teenage shooter. What does that tell you about her wider intentions inside that school?
Right. She came well armed, it appears. So the intention was definitely there. And I think, the next question is, how did she get the weapons? Where did she get the weapons? Where did she get the ammunition? Each state has different laws, but depending on the state, what was the legal age to obtain a firearm? Did she obtain this from home? So there's still a lot of questions and answers to be had. But yes, it appears that with 2 assault rifles and a handgun that she went prepared.
And for clarity, I mean, when we hear from authorities assault rifle, the way that, we understand it is semi-automatic rifles, or do you know a little bit more about, what type of weapon that indicates when authorities say assault style?
Everybody uses kind of different words and different meanings. So, in my mind, an assault rifle means that it has, it's not single shot, it's capable of multiple rounds and capable of, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting my word, the magazine capacity to hold more rounds than a handgun.
Kathy, while you're talking, we're looking at these live pictures of kind of an aerial shot of the Covenant School attached to the church there. It's a beautiful building, large grounds, and you see officers, law enforcement of some description, they're walking around through the bushes. What might they be searching for? Is that a standard part of kind of combing the grounds?
I don't see that it's unusual. They may be looking for maybe other points of access where she tried to get in. They may be looking for spent shell casings. They may be looking for shoe impressions and things of that nature that may give them a clearer picture to how long she was on property, what other doors or points of access did she try to gain. So there could be several different reasons. Also making sure maybe that nobody's hiding in the bushes, a scared child, a scared person. There's several reasons they could be walking around, making sure the perimeter is secure.
And when seeking answers in a shooting like this, I wonder, especially I keep going back to the idea that it was a female shooter and how rare that is in our reporting, as we've reported on so many mass shootings, and it tends to be a male shooter. In this case, it appears to be a female shooter. According to police, it seemed like she might have been a teenager. Is it common that maybe, as you mentioned, it could have been a collaboration, that there could be someone else involved, or is it more common for it to be a lone shooter?
I would say it's more common for a lone shooter. However, we have seen cases where women have been aiding and abetting, with a male, or, being forced to do it. So, at this point, it's still too early to say. It appears she may have been acting alone. But at this point, I guess we can't really say for sure that she wasn't. But there's no indication at this point in time.
Kathy, one of the questions we always you hear in the aftermath of any crime is the potential for a copycat event. I don't know if that is a concern when it comes to school shootings, but it seems like the more we talk about it, the more they happen. And, correlation is not causation. But is there the potential for there to be an echo effect in that community? Should other places be on guard in the weeks ahead?
I would say yes. In my personal opinion, if I was a school in the area, I would be making sure that our policies and procedures are in place and that they're being followed, and that side doors, back doors aren't being propped open. Somebody's not taking a smoke break and leaving the door open. Copycats have happened for various different crimes. And there's just really no reason to take a chance, especially when our kids and school-age children are involved. So, my recommendation would be yes. I think all the schools in the area need to be on high alert to make sure that doesn't happen to their school.
Kathy Guider, thank you so much for all the wisdom you've shared with us. We have been following these developments in Tennessee and Nashville, where a female shooter has killed 6 people, 3 students and 3 adults. We're going to continue to follow all of these developments and bring you more.
Yeah, we'll have much more at the top of the hour. This is CBS News.
Hey there, welcome to The Uplift.
I thought she was a groom, and I stepped back and I went, oh, you're the queen. She's going to be with me every instant that I'm alive.
I just wanted to see if you'd go to Disneyland with me today. I look over at him and he's smiling.
I'm going to remember that the rest of my life.
They told us when he was going to be born, he was only going to live for 30 minutes. It's really a miracle that he's with us today.
The Uplift. Stream now on the free CBS News app.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
On our places, bright, shiny faces.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my 2 good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings.
An original documentary from CBS reports.
I always tell people that Twitter would not be Twitter without Black Twitter. It's just us being in fellowship with each other.
And there becomes a conversation you don't want to be left out of.
People really started to recognize the power of activism on Twitter.
Based on that one tweet, the hashtag #OscarSoWhite was trending around the world.
If anything has really powered Black Twitter, it's been humor.
If your food ain't right, oh, we're going to tell you about that too.
We tend to create change, create culture and cool.
That's how movements happen on Black Twitter and go beyond more than that.
Black Twitter, the Twitterverse that changed a generation. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
You ready?
A generation of kids opens up on CBS Reports.
I just want to be like a regular kid.
Their world, their struggles, their voices.
What if I was white?
A lot of people like to call names and make you feel ashamed for being proud of who you are.
Now streaming Gender.
I did not realize that you could change your gender.
Realizing how you feel.
You can be a boy, sometimes you feel like a girl, sometimes you feel like both.
Redefining who you are.
Identify as trans.
Gender fluid.
Non-binary and queer.
Is the idea of gender a thing of the past?
And to be yourself, always, no matter what anyone says, I love you.
Are the kids all right? Gender. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Stories that inform.
Or you can be really old at 60, and you can be really young at 85.
Inspire.
How do we unlock the power within ourselves to be who we want to be?
And brighten your day.
The best part of fame is making people feel good. Always send the people home happy.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
The news doesn't have to always be depressing.
What do you love about running?
It can be uplifting. That human connection that we create on the broadcast every night is incredibly important.
It's official. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's national security minister says his plan to overhaul the judiciary has been put on hold until next month.
Or maybe not quite official. We'll hear from the Prime Minister sometime within the hour, according to his office. But the decision comes after mass protests and strikes intensified over the weekend. CBS News' Tina Kraus reports now from London.
Massive demonstrations that have rocked Israel for months reached a boiling point overnight, with protests